What's going on, everyone? In this video, we're going to talk about the different ways to determine if a property will rent well as a vacation rental. Welcome back, everyone. So in the last 4 years, I've come across a lot of different ways that both short-term rental and long-term rentals are underwritten. And in this video, I want to go over some of them. This video is one of the more important videos because it will show you exactly what to do so that you can confidently say that a certain property will cash flow right as a vacation rental or a short-term rental. At the end of this video, I'll be sharing how I currently underwrite my deals. I'm going to first start off with the least riskiest way to underwrite a deal. You essentially want to underwrite the deal as a long-term rental. Why do you want to do this? One of the reasons is if you feel like there will be eventually like a shift in your short-term rental rules in your county, you would want to underwrite this way. Say one day you wake up and find out that your city no longer allows for short-term rentals. If you use the strategy of underwriting a deal as long-term rentals, then you'll be sheltered if any changes were to happen in the short-term rental laws in your city. There are two quick ways you can underwrite a long-term deal. Now, this isn't a crazy detailed way to see if the numbers work out in the deal. It's meant to be more of a metric to follow when you're looking at a lot of deals. The first rule is the 50% rule. This rule states that the expenses tend to be 50% of the income, not including principal and interest. The formula is total income multiplied by 0.5 and then subtract the mortgage principal and interest. In other words, simply divide the income in half and subtract out the mortgage payment. If the expenses are more than 50%, then the deal won't work as a long-term rental. The second rule is the 1% rule. The 1% rule states that the property can rent for 1% of the purchase price each month. And if it can pass that rule, the 1% rule, then it's highly likely that it'll be cash flowing positively. In other books I've read, I've seen this metric as like the 0.8% rule or the 0.8% metric. I've always just used the 1% rule. Just like nice and even across the board. A third metric investors use generally is looking for a property that can produce a 10% capitalization rate. You'll hear like real estate investors in different types of like real estate clubs say that, yeah, I'm looking for like a 10% cap. A 10% cap meaning 10% capitalization rate. In today's market, good luck trying to even find a 10% cap rate as a long-term rental. It's possible, but it's very difficult. To calculate cap rate, take the net operating income of the property for the whole year and divide it by the purchase price. You can then compare that number to other properties and see if it would be worth your time. You can do this for long-term investments and short-term investments both. Now, what we do when developing a new project or multiple projects at once is we use both the 1% rule and the 50% rule to see if our projects that we are building would do well as long-term investments. Now, if they don't meet these rules, that doesn't mean that we scrap the project altogether. Our projects, like I've mentioned in the past, are placed on separate plots. I still like to stick to placing 2 cabins on each separate plot, so a primary and accessory dwelling unit per plot. That way we have a built-in exit, which means we can sell off or sell a property to a person that wants to like make it their primary residence if we like run into financial issues compared to selling, like if we're building 6 cabins at once, to sell the whole project at once. At the end of the day, it's all about how much appetite you have for risk. If you decide to be very conservative with risk, then underwriting your properties as long-term investments will be your best bet. And at the same time, if you build them on separate parcels, you can still use that strategy of selling them off while, again, at the same time renting and underwriting them as long-term rentals. Just know that they don't always have to meet the long-term renter underwriting if you feel confident that you can sell them off to people who will be willing to live in them. Again, that's if like the rules change in your county. Now, that's that's all going to be like market dependent, since every market is different. Now let's talk about some of the different ways you can go about underwriting a property that's strictly for short-term rentals. I'm constantly finding new methods to underwrite new properties, but these are the ones I currently use. There are 3 methods. They range from very detailed to almost like no detail whatsoever. The most detailed way I've seen to see if a property will do well on places like Airbnb is to use a service called AirDNA.co. This company pulls all their data from Airbnb and VRBO, and then they show you what all the properties in your area are being rented out as vacation rentals. What they can also show you is what the revenue of the property is bringing in, the average daily rate, and the occupancy of a specific property, or all the properties in your market in generally. From there, you can look at properties that are similar to the ones you're developing or buying. AirDNA does cost some money, but it's paid monthly and you can cancel at any time. You can also use this site to explore different short-term rental markets that are close to your city. I'll be doing a separate video where I screen record my computer and I'll go through all the different things that AirDNA is capable of. But for now, I use AirDNA just to get an idea of what similar properties in my market will rent for. From there, you can calculate your expenses for the property and see how many days you would need to book up to break even. The second strategy states that the top 12 weeks out of the year should pay for the mortgage payment for the entire year. This includes taxes and insurance. From there, you add 5 weeks to pay for miscellaneous things like HOA, internet, and utilities. So essentially the top 17 weeks, give or take a week, should pay for the property for the entire year, which comes out to be about a 33% break-even occupancy. Our break-even occupancy rates are anywhere between 33 to 37%. If you're booked at 100%, then you would take the 100% and then subtract the break-even occupancy to come up with your potential profit. We underwrite all of our properties at an 80% occupancy. The lower you go, the more conservative you get. I honestly wouldn't go any lower than like a 60% occupancy, 65% occupancy rate. If you're applying everything I teach on this YouTube channel, you should have no problem getting like an 80% occupancy overall throughout the whole year. The third strategy, which is the simplest strategy, is to figure out what a normal weekend rate for the properties in your area are, and then see if only booking weekends will cover all your expenses. In other words, all the weekend days of the month should cover your expenses for the entire month, and everything that's left, so the weekdays, would be profit. Weekend days are defined as Friday and Saturday, but I don't include Sunday. By this definition, there are 8 weekend days in the entire month. What those 8 weekend days bring in should cover your expenses for the entire month, including your mortgage or your rent payment. A word of caution here, because I have seen this happen a lot when our investors are underwriting properties. They will simply go on to Airbnb to see how much their property will rent out based off of current listings that pop up on Airbnb. This can potentially be misleading because Airbnb is only showing you properties that have not booked yet. You can go 4 to 6 months in the future to see what other properties that have not booked yet are asking for, but those prices could drop because the property simply has not been booked yet. I strongly recommend spending a little money on AirDNA to see what all the top properties in your area are getting as an average daily rate. Lastly, I want to talk about the current strategy I use. I usually underwrite my properties as long-term rentals. Now, if the numbers don't work out like by a little bit, I will more than likely still go through with the deal with the backup of selling the property if it loses money, or selling the property if the county, say, like decides to one day change the vacation rental laws and not allow vacation rentals in the county. I use AirDNA to calculate an average daily rate, and then I figure out what my break-even occupancy needs to be to pay all the bills without losing money. From there, I calculate the return on investment and see if that's a number I'm comfortable with. My current ROI to my investors is about 30 to 50% annually. Anything lower than 30, I won't even consider unless if it's a very large project, say like 10 units or more. So that's everything. I hope this video has helped with trying to figure out what your potential properties could rent for on the short-term rental market. I'm sure some questions have come up with these different forms of analysis. Please feel free to ask any questions you have in the comment section below. I answer all questions that get left below down there. I hope everyone is staying safe, and I'll see everyone on next week's video.